when Donald Trump's illegal and unconstitutional attacks on law firms around the country puts together in a shotgun marriage a law firm that has beaten Donald Trump in federal court to declare his attempt to put them on the radioactive list, when they join together with the American Bar Association that's been around for about 150 years, that's also on the receiving end of Donald Trump's criticism and attack, when you put those two groups together, what do you get? You get a 93-page lawsuit filed by the American Bar Association in federal court in D.C. against every agency and department in the federal government. I mean, every agency and department in the federal government, from the Department of Justice and Donald Trump all the way down to the post office. And what they're seeking is a court to once and for all, on behalf of all the legal profession, tell Donald Trump that his law firm intimidation policies, and policy, that's what they call it, needs to be wrecked, needs to be blocked permanently. They're not content as a professional organization representing the business of lawyers to just let individual law firms have to bring their own suits one at a time. This is seeking a mass declaration that it is unconstitutional for Donald Trump to attack the independence of law firms. And they're using it by telling the federal court in D.C. that they have actual members of the American Bar Association, who are for now nameless, who know for a fact that their law firms are adjusting how they bring in cases and are refusing to take on cases to represent pro bono interests of those that are disadvantaged and disenfranchised in this country because they don't want to get on the other side of Donald Trump. In other words, his law firm retaliation and intimidation policy is working to a T. And that forms the basis of the lawsuit and the injunction that is asked as a part of it. We got the union that Donald Trump wanted. Sussman Godfrey, one of the law firms, there's 4 of them that have successfully received court intervention and had their order declaring them to be persona non gratis, to deny them the ability to represent people before the federal government, to deny them their security clearance. Sussman Godfrey, one of the winners. They've joined with the American Bar Association to bring this case. Remember that Donald Trump attacked the American Bar Association just a couple of weeks ago through his Department of Justice head, Pam Bondi, and said, oh, the American Bar Association is a liberal, Marxist, activist organization, and we're not going to listen to how they review judges anymore before we pick them. We're going to pick our own judges our own way, without the Federalist Society, and without the American Bar Association. Well, that woke up a sleeping giant. I'm a member of the American Bar Association. Let's talk about this new lawsuit here on Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. I sit at the intersection of law and politics, and I try to demystify all the things that are out there in the law and make it comprehensible for you to understand so that you can take it into the streets and start talking about these issues. Let's talk about the defendant class in this new lawsuit is gigantic. It's literally every agency: Department of Agriculture, the CIA, the Consumer Finance Protection Board, Howard Lutnick as the Secretary of Commerce, Pete Hegseth, the Department of Energy, the Department of Health and Human Services, Kristi Noem, the Interior Secretary, FBI. Everybody has been sued, because they have been ordered by Donald Trump not to work with about a dozen different law firms. And we don't want to wait around for the next time Donald Trump goes after these firms. This lawsuit is sitting on the shoulders of 4 different cases from 4 different judges, siding with Sussman Godfrey, Perkins Coie, Jenner and Block, and Wilmer Hale, all major law firms in America that have all won. In fact, when Beryl Howell, who is one of the leading jurists in D.C., when she wrote her opinion, she reminded us what an independent bar, independent lawyers mean to our democracy, and they cite to that. Here's what they say in citing to the law firm orders as being unconstitutional from the Judge Beryl Howell's decision. The importance of independent lawyers to ensuring the American judicial system's fair and impartial administration of justice has been recognized in this country since its founding. In 1770, John Adams made the singularly unpopular decision to represent 8 British soldiers charged with murder for their roles in the Boston Massacre, and claimed later to have suffered the loss of more than half his practice as a result. I have no hesitation, he explained. Counsel ought to be the very last thing that an accused person should want in a free country. The bar ought to be independent and impartial at all times. The court then said, this value placed on the role of lawyers caught the attention of Alexis de Tocqueville. This is on page 5 of the complaint, who, in reflecting on his travels throughout the early United States in 1831 and 1832, insightfully remarked that the authority entrusted to members of the legal profession is the most powerful existing security against the excesses of democracy, and then citing to the United States Supreme Court cases. It is the cornerstone of the American system of justice, is an independent judiciary and an independent bar willing to tackle unpopular cases, however daunting. You need both in our adversarial process, or you have nothing. And the fact that in the complaint, they cite to a number of actual lawyers, anonymous for now, but not for long, from the American Bar Association membership, who have said it has had a chilling effect within their firm. They're not allowed to take certain cases they used to take. They have security clearances. They're worried about their relationship with the Trump administration, and they're making major changes, undermining the independence of the legal profession as a result. And that is exactly what they're attacking here with the going after what they refer to as the Trump Law Firm Intimidation Policy. That is what's being attacked all in one. It stands in contrast to the individual law firms, including the law firm that brought this case for the American Bar Association, because they're just getting individual rights adjudicated. This takes on the entire policy on behalf of all the members of the American Bar Association. Now, let me just tell people, because, I know it well, because I've been a member since I became a member of the bar. It is about as plain vanilla of an organization as you can think. You'll find its journal sitting in dentist's office. If you ever have trouble sleeping at night, you can pick it up. Apologies to those that write for it. I've written for bar journals myself, but it is about as plain vanilla and down the middle of the road as possible. But to Donald Trump, when they call out his radical right-wing MAGA judges and oppose them and say they're unqualified to have the jobs that he wants, he, of course, now wants to attack the ABA. And that woke up what I refer to now as the sleeping giant. Here's what the American Bar Association is all about. And they also remind everybody what their role has been. This is on page 1, paragraph 1. In 1878, a group of 75 lawyers from 20 states and D.C. met in a courtroom in Saratoga Springs, New York, to establish the ABA, the American Bar Association, committed to advancing the rule of law across the American nation. Over the nearly 150 years since its founding, it has sought to fulfill that commitment through initiatives and have fundamentally changed the American legal landscape for the better. In 1908, it adopted the first national ethical guidance for lawyers. It is that American Bar Association model rules that every state models its lawyer ethics code on. I've sworn in allegiance to the model code, I can't tell you how many times, with all the bars that I'm a member of. And it also has judicial canons and ethics since 1924. That's also the model for all states and the federal government. In 1937, the American Bar Association organized a national response against Franklin Delano Roosevelt's attempt to pack the United States Supreme Court, including a survey of all ABA members. It is a leader in the community. I can't think of a better organization to do it. I'm surprised they waited this long. That's the only thing my only criticism, and it's a slight one, is that I guess they were waiting to get clear, to get all these judgments in, to find a law firm, Sussman Godfrey, of course, who successfully defeated Donald Trump. And let me remind people of what the impact's been. It's not just the 14 law firms that settled with Donald Trump and gave him $1 billion worth of free legal service for his and all MAGA causes. It's not just that. It's that they also have gutted their pro bono programs, which is where people through fellowship and a pro bono have agreed to take on unpopular causes for free that require great legal work. Give you an example. Ruby Freeman and Shane Moss, the mother-daughter election workers in Fulton County, horribly doxxed and defamed by Rudy Giuliani and even Donald Trump. had their lives turned topsy-turvy and upside down, received a $158 million judgment for defamation against Rudy Giuliani in federal court and have been collecting on it ever since. They were represented by Wilkie Farr and Gallagher through their pro bono program, meaning they were getting top flight, white shoe, Wall Street litigators to do their work. They would never be able to get quality lawyering at that level and they didn't have the money to pay for it. And I'm sure that helped win the case. Wilkie Farr and Gallagher then settled with Donald Trump, killed its pro bono program, gave Donald Trump, I think, over $100 million worth of free legal service. And that is what these major firms are doing. They're going out of the business of providing free legal service for the downtrodden, for the disadvantaged, and the underprivileged. So it has that effect. They're not taking cases, even if they can pay for them, for unpopular causes. Unpopular because Trump's made them unpopular, like the LGBTQ plus community, like women's rights groups, like immigration rights groups. They're staying away from it because they're worried about their own security clearance. They're worried about their own profit for partners. And the ABA is saying, we can't afford to have a bar lawyers that look over their shoulder. It is undermining the very aspect of our constitutional republic and our democracy. And they're taking it on to be assigned to a judge in the District of Columbia. This is an important case, not just because I'm a lawyer, not just because it's because of the foundational aspect of having a lawyer that is free and independent for you. Yeah. As Judge Beryl Howell said in her order about one of these law firms, she questioned, how could you ever trust one of these law firms that settled if you're hiring them to do battle with or represent you in front of the Trump federal government? How could you ever trust them that they wouldn't blink or that they're being the zealous advocates that they're required to be under the ABA model rules? How would you ever trust them? Because they have dual allegiance. They're worried about their business model under attack by Donald Trump, and yet they're also representing you. She said, look for another law firm. And there are dozens, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of law firms that have stepped into the fray, that are running into the burning building to represent people and organizations. But it's not enough to instantly overnight replace all the pro bono programs that have been gutted by Donald Trump because of the chicken shit law firms, including one that I started my career in. There's not enough time to replace them. Sure, there's a handful of new law firms that have been founded to represent people who have been attacked by the Trump administration. But what about all those other pro bono cases that are languishing, that have no representation because people are too scared in the legal profession? That's what the ABA's new suit is addressing. I'm going to continue to follow it, who the judge assigned to it is, the status of the temporary restraining order, and how we get there. But it is a solid case. I don't know if all these entities need to be in the case, but it is a solid case on all fours, based on 4 separate cases and precedent in this area. And the Supreme Court, get ready, because you're going to be on your summer vacation. You're going to be getting this lawsuit. If it's not over the summer, it's going to be in the beginning of the first term, the new term that starts October, the first Monday in October. And I'll follow it here on Legal AF. Take a moment. Vote yes for our work product. Vote yes for our analysis. Hit the subscribe button. Help us get to 700,000 before this month is over. We can do it with your help. And it is important, because it keeps the content coming. It keeps the live feeds and streams of oral arguments, the analysis you can't find anywhere else, here on Legal AF, the home to demystify everything at the intersection of law and politics. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.